All right. So a couple of things I wanted to talk about. Very important things. For one, Jon Jones and Terence Crawford have the same dilemma going on, but in a different parallel. Let me explain. For one, Jon Jones doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. He's the new guy coming up. He's the one that everybody wants to see rise after a whole new generation of people retire. And guess what? Terence Crawford is going through the same thing with Jarron Ennis. Jarron Ennis, like Tom Aspinall, is the new generation of fighters. And because of that, I think Terence Crawford is a little bit hesitant in trying his luck. And I think it's really fair to say that. It's also very fair to say that Jon Jones blatantly feels the same way, at least the way that he presents himself to the public. Now, I want to say something in advocate of Jon Jones and Terence Crawford, but I also want to have a rebuttal to that. So here it goes. The advocacy that I have for Jon Jones and Terence Crawford is that they don't really need to prove anything to anybody. You fans are the one that wants to see it. You are the one that perhaps maybe wants to see them fall. And with good reason. Because let's just be honest. When we're kids, we build up bricks and little toy blocks of Legos, let's say, right? And you stack them up to the sky. You know why you do that? Because you're just waiting to knock it down. And as a result, this is the same mentality that we have for our current future sports stars, especially in the combat sports realm. So it's very to understand there's the same very parallels to that. There's also the other aspect that you have to take into consideration, such as CTE. The longer you go, the more damage you're going to accumulate. And not only that, really just diminish your life's quality in the latter years of your life, especially within the latter years of your retirement in your fight career. Now, they have to live their whole entire lives without fighting. Sure, you can train forever. The bottom line is there is an aspect of having to retire from top-level competition. Some things just doesn't work the same anymore. You're just not as quick. You're just not as fast. And the years of accumulative damage, along with the overtraining that you had to do to get to the next level, somehow is going to diminish at some point. That is why they say there is a certain level of prime and there is a certain level of, well, let's say the latter years of your combat sports career. Now, you could argue that maybe in the latter years of Jon Jones's career, that perhaps maybe he can go on and still become formidable in the top world level of MMA. The problem is that it is not the same as, let's say, Arthur Beterbiev, who we just recently seen dismantle Callum Smith, a guy who's never been knocked down before, all of a sudden gets knocked down in his fight, a guy who's never been finished, only been outclassed by Canelo Alvarez, and then he gets finished by Arthur Beterbiev in an age where a lot of people are expecting him to decline, and yet he feels he is still getting better. Now, why is that? In contrast to Jon Jones, he's living a life where, let's just say that it's not conducive to a fighter's life. It really isn't, because what is he doing? Let's be honest. He's out there snorting the snow, all these other recreational drugs. He drinks a lot. There's been rumors for years that have mentioned that Jon Jones really doesn't like to train hard and that he relies a lot on his talent. And it got him far. It made him really the number one pound-for-pound guy in the entire sport of MMA, just like Terence Crawford. The problem is that Jon does not live like Terence Crawford. He does not live like Arthur Beterbiev. He doesn't live like Khabib. And he doesn't live like these other guys that lead a clean life and continuously train even in the off seasons. With the likes of Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, George St. Pierre, just to name a few of those combat sports names, to really understand that that is not the lifestyle that Jon Jones lives, so there is a limit. Now, with Terence Crawford, it's a little bit different because maybe perhaps he is facing a guy that is really his equal. And not only his equal, maybe somebody that is his superior in terms of being a little bit younger, also being able to know how to switch stances, and then on top of that, a guy that has enormous amounts of power. But the reality is that Terence Crawford has more of the experience, and we all know that if you are in decent enough shape in boxing, you can really get away with a lot of experience. This is something that Jon Jones is not able to get away with when it comes to something to that extent. So that is all that I really have to say for Jon Jones. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is UFC 297. I really think that I've gone back and forth with who I'm going to go for in this particular fight. Why? Sean Strickland has amazing cardio because he has technical efficiency. Whereas with, let's say, somebody like Dricus du Plessis, what he has is sheer grit. Everything down to the training methods that he does in South Africa is the reason why he fights the way he does. And let me explain something. To a lot of the technical guys out there that understand crisp boxing, crisp kickboxing, and doing things in a very technical way, he looks very sloppy in the superficial side of things. However, you got to understand the way that he trains is very detrimental to understanding why he throws the kind of shots that he does and why it looks like the way that it does. And let me explain. Dricus constantly trains in the heat. This I know because of MMA Guru's videos that he's had when he flew down to South Africa, where he talks about their training methods. They don't have an air conditioning. On top of that, not only is South Africa hot, but they have a high elevation in which they train at. So in other words, the way that Dricus trains is just constant heat, constant grind, and constantly trying to grit himself into situations, which is the reason why he looks quote-unquote sloppy when he throws these shots, but at the same time also looks very effective. So this is why I go back and forth with these fights. What is going to win? Is the sheer grit and constant volume going to defeat somebody like, let's say, Sean Strickland, who just has technical efficiency? Will technical efficiency be enough to match the cardio of Dricus du Plessis? And I got to tell you, I think that the answer could be no. This is why I'm really leaning towards Dricus. There were times where I have picked Sean Strickland. I don't think I picked Sean Strickland in this particular channel. But I believe there were times in my mind where I thought about fights during the day and thought, man, you know what? Sean Strickland could potentially get this guy just based on the fact that, well, he has great efficiency, which means he can able to use that within the 5-round range, maybe perhaps get through a lot of adversity by making Dricus miss the shots. But even if Dricus starts missing shots, he's still going to move forward at you. This guy fights literally like a machine. The conditioning that he trains at makes him like that. And not only that, he's going to be in a very air-conditioned room. And the reason why I think it's important to understand that and to understand his training in the heat is because I've delved into experimenting this type of training. For example, I would go in the gym, in a fitness gym, and do, let's say, sled pushes, box jumps, all these things, right? To basically get my HGH up, and not only that, build explosiveness while building strength. And then I would go into the sauna and shadow box for 15 minutes. Now remember, you guys know what it's like to be in a sauna. For those of you that don't, it's literally being in a room that is 120 degrees, and then you're in there. I'm basically throwing punches, throwing kicks, just trying to practice my movements out, right? It is very hard. And I would say that I'm very technical in the way that I would throw my shots, even if, let's say, I'm hitting the bag or if I'm sparring. But the way that I had tried to conduct myself in the sauna in those precarious positions is that I found myself sort of laboring a lot of shots. Which, by the way, is the reason why Dricus looks like the way that he does. He's used to laboring a lot of his shots. But guess what? This time it's going to come a lot faster and harder in an air-conditioned room. On top of that, fighting in the cold weather of Canada. So this is why I say that even with all the different technical kicks and punches that we can talk about. For example, Sean Strickland never likes to take people down to the ground. He would rather box with you and then kickbox, and that's it. He never initiates any takedowns. Dricus du Plessis would definitely do that, especially if, let's say, he gets in trouble on the feet and Sean is peppering him with jabs after jabs. He's going to change his level at some point, shoot in on him, take him to the ground, perhaps maybe try to attempt a Kimura lock from side control, maybe pass his guard, do all types of different things, which, by the way, is more susceptible on Dricus du Plessis' side than it is on Sean's side. But on the striking aspect, I really think that it is Dricus du Plessis that's going to throw the bombs. And by the way, I would not be surprised if he ends up finishing him or KOing him within a 2-round range. So I know I may have given a different prediction in the last couple of videos when I was talking about Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis. You could find that in all the different sections on the videos or in the live portion of this channel. Maybe I may have changed, but the one thing remained constant. I'm not picking Sean Strickland, not because of any biasness or anything like that. In fact, well, I don't think I would have picked him against Izzy either, just based on the technical deficiency and the difference that I had thought. Come to find out, Sean Strickland seems to have the most efficient style there is. But this is one of those situations where efficiency really doesn't match the sheer grit and athleticism that Dricus du Plessis is going to have over him. Just like Francis Ngannou, by the way, a man who has trained with Sean Strickland before and has sparred with him, which transitions me into the third and final reaction that I'm going to do with the press conference that Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou had. Now, an interesting thing that I think is really good to point out. The King of Saudi Arabia, or I'm sorry, His Excellency, who is the head of the sports management of Saudi Arabia, really went out of his way to say that, you know what, the way that we created this poster, we wanted to emulate Street Fighter. So it kind of gives you a peak understanding of where this Saudi gentleman's mind is. Perhaps maybe he is around his 40s, maybe his mid-30s or late 30s. In other words, he grew up around the Street Fighter era, so he gets it. This is a real fight fan from a guy who has enjoyed watching Western action cartoons such as Street Fighter, because obviously before Street Fighter was a video game, it was a cartoon, or was it the reverse? Tell me on the comment section below if you made it this far. Nonetheless, here's something you got to understand with that particular sheikh. I think he did a great job in capturing the imagination of the fans, in letting us understand where his mindset was with this particular event and these particular fights that he wants to put together. He also mentioned that this fight is attached to the February 17th Undisputed boxing card with Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. They presented a belt on the screen that's looked like a combination of an old WCW belt and a current UFC belt to sort of signify that we now have a new undisputed champion in boxing for the first time since Lennox Lewis. So I thought that was really interesting. Between their trash talking in the press conference, there wasn't really a lot of that, if none at all. They were very respectful with each other. Anthony Joshua complimented Francis Ngannou in his performance against Tyson Fury. Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn were told by the Sheikh, hey, we want an event where we want 5 of your best guys from Matchroom and 5 of your best guys from Queensberry, which I thought is really interesting. It gave me WCW versus WWE vibes when, let's say, Vince McMahon bought the company from Ted Turner and decided to use WCW as a wrestling stable within a storyline of invasions and organization versus organization. And now we have it in real fighting, in real boxing, which, by the way, goes into the trajectory and the mindset of the Sheikh being a fan of 90s action cartoons, comics, and video games. I thought it was also interesting that Gareth Davies, the journalist of, I'm not sure what he works for. I'm not sure if it's a Daily Mail or some independent British combat sports channel, but he asked the Sheikh, what do you think of Oscar De La Hoya's comments? He said, well, we're going to be missing Oscar De La Hoya. Now, I don't know about you, but that didn't sound very promising for Oscar De La Hoya, okay? It gave me some real bad vibes, and you know the reputation of the Saudis, and I'm going to leave it at that. So I thought that was really interesting. That was really all that you could take from that particular press conference with Francis Ngannou and Anthony Joshua. I think that we have some great boxing fights ahead, all thanks to the Saudis. And we also have some great UFC fights coming ahead, even after UFC 299, because even a lot of people are complaining that UFC 300 is going to be very lackluster for one reason or another. But either way, I think that we have a lot of great fights ahead for 2024, just as we had for 2023. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this content. Don't forget to tell a friend to tell a friend. Inshallah, I will see you guys on the next one.